Derek is going to take us on a tour of the brewery and explain the process from start to finish on how a commercial brewery does things. It's a little different than home brewing. It's a little more buttons and levers. But so Derek, if you will help us with that.
Yeah, so actually our brew day will start right back behind me at our mill. We have a mill that we got from RMS out of South Dakota.
It's a lot bigger than my mill.
It's a little bit. I mean, this is what we use for our small batches. So
barley crusher. Yeah.
Just for scale, you can tell the difference between what we use and what the average home brewer uses. Because I mean, through here we're passing maybe 25, 30 pounds of grain. Through here we're passing anywhere from 1,200 to 1,200 to 2,500 pounds of grain. So we mash in through here. Inside of here are two giant stainless steel rollers. They're going to crack the exterior of the grain. Malted barley has a hard exterior shell, but inside it has a rich nutrient substance called endosperm that we're trying to get to. So by passing it through the mill, it allows us to crack that grain so we can pass it up to our mash tun and start to take that rich nutrient center and convert it to simple sugars for the yeast later on down the line.
That endosperm is mostly starch, right?
Mostly starch. There are some complex carbohydrates, some basic sugars in there, but mostly starch.
Okay.
So it'll pass up this white pipe that you see going across the roof here. It's got a flexible auger inside, basically a flexible stainless steel screw that will move the grain for us up into the brew kettle system itself. It's a lot easier than plastic buckets.
Yeah. Moving grain from one place to another is not the funnest thing in the world.
It's how I've spilled many a batch at the homebrew scale. It's nothing more frustrating than that. So it'll pass up into our kettle system through the auger pipe, and it'll start at the top left side vessel.
Can we go up there?
Absolutely, come on.
So these are your boil kettles?
What
exactly are they?
So this is the vessel that we'll start in. This is called a mash tun.
Okay.
So this is where the grain and the water will mix together and start creating wort.
Just for my own curiosity, do you have a separate lauter tun?
We do. It's the second vessel up here at the top.
We'll get to that then.
So we'll start hydrating the malt in the mash tun, and it takes, with the amount of malts we use on a heavy malt day, it's about 45 minutes to mash in.
Okay.
On a light day, it's about 30 minutes. But it'll drop down into here. We'll add water. We'll start to mix it all together. We'll let it rest in there for about an hour and a half before we go through the temperature raising process to stop all the enzymatic reactions and get the sugar content that we want. And then we'll pass it over to the ladder tun. Most home brewers, if you're brewing at home, you've got the igloo cooler, so your mash tun, your ladder tun are combined. For us, we're thinking more along the lines of the future. We want to try to make ourselves more efficient in the coming months, years.
Well, in a commercial sense, if you free up your mash tun, you can just mash in and immediately again while you're lautering your last batch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So by doing that, it allows us to be much more efficient. So the ladder tun is completely separate. And the ladder tun, it really has one really simple design. It's going to separate the wort from the grain. The wort's going to travel down to our boil kettle. The grain will stay inside of there. We'll sparge it and rinse all the residual sugars out. We're trying to get as much sugar content as we can out of it. And then after all that's done, I make my assistant muck it out because it's hot, it's nasty, and I don't want to do it. I've done this for a while, so Jeff, if you're watching, good job.
I
Good job.
got to clean out the mash tun at full steam once, and I thought it was
how was
great.
that? Oh, I mean, this
I
is
thought
actually
it was awesome, but then again, I don't do it every day.
Yeah. This is actually much easier than a lot of the other ones we've used because it just has an opening man door. So all you got to do is open it, turn on the rakes, and it just drops everything out for you. And all you got to do is close it and move on.
That doesn't sound so bad.
It's
you
not.
mean you don't have to like reach in there with a rake and or a shovel and pull things out?
Well, you kind of do because it gets some of it, but doesn't get all of it.
Yeah.
So you have to get in there with a shovel and create like a little mound so it'll get the rest of it. But mostly I'm doing that while he's in the trailer, shoveling it to the back of the trailer.
That's what assistants are for.
Yeah, minions, get them. They're awesome. So while he's doing that, we'll have the wort transferred down here to this bottom vessel. This is our boil kettle.
Okay.
And this is where we'll raise it up to a rolling boil, and this is where we start to incorporate hops, because wort is a very, very sweet substance. So by adding hops, it adds a lot of bitterness to it. Usually if you do it in the first 60 minutes. The later you add the hops, the more aroma, the more flavors you're gonna gather from it. Most of our beers are very malt forward, so most of our hops go in really at the 60-minute mark, and we don't add too many late addition hops. Now that we're doing an IPA, there are hops all across the board, and it's fun to clean. But it'll go through here for about 60 minutes, or until we've reached our final gravity. And then we'll transfer it to our whirlpool vessel, which is this last vessel down here at the bottom. And that's going to do just exactly what it sounds like. It's just going to whirlpool everything around.
And that helps remove, well, not remove, but condense the trub in the particulate matter.
Exactly.
Right?
It pulls it all to the middle. With the large scale that we have, we actually run our pump for about 10 minutes till we can get a good whirlpool out of it. And then we let it rest for another 25 minutes before we start to pull off to the side.
And that's all before you cool it or anything.
Before
like
we cool it, anything like that. And then we'll pass it through our heat exchanger, which I love. I've homebrewed for a long time, and chilling the wort at the end of the night
works better than an immersion chiller.
Oh my God, the immersion chillers hurt so bad. Like, I just want to get done. I just want to drink a beer. I just want to clean up, and I can't do it. But our heat exchanger, which is connected to our cold liquor tank, so we can pass cold water through it. And then the wort comes in an opposite direction, strips all the heat out of the wort. We can take it from about 209 degrees down to 70 degrees in seconds, and allows us to recycle our water, because the cold water comes in, out the other side, it comes out extremely hot. We recycle it back into our hot water tank. We can use it for cleaning, future brews, eventually when we get to that point.
Yeah, I usually do that myself in home brewing. I'll take the first couple buckets of hot water to use for cleaning. Yeah. Might as well, right?
You know, I mean, either that or it's going down the drain.
Yeah.
So take what you can get.
Well, cool. So once it's chilled, then it's going into a fermenter.
Then it's going into a fermenter.
Let's take a look at these fermenters. Well, we already saw the 30-barrel fermenter. I take it Big Poppin' next to it.
This is a
60-barrel fermenter.
60-barrel fermenter. We'll get to the point eventually where we'll have to start double batching. So eventually we'll start filling these bad boys up. But for right now, just the 30-barrel fermenters are going to work for us.
And these are your glycol lines, right?
Correct.
Why don't you explain a little bit about what that's about?
Well, the glycol lines that we use a 35% mixture of propylene glycol and water. Basically, it's food-grade antifreeze. And so you have the exterior of the tank that you can see. There's an interior lining of the tank as well, and in between that space is where the glycol runs. It allows us to control our temperature, which is extremely important when you're trying to brew, whether it be home brewing, whether it be professional brewing. Controlling your temperature is everything. You don't want your yeast to get out of whack, and
you can make different beers fermenting at different temperatures.
True. I like to equate yeast to like a 1990s angsty teenager, because if you don't get enough light, if you don't get enough heat, cold, oxygen, food, it just throws a temper tantrum and just screws everything up.
Right.
So we try to accommodate by using glycol, by oxygenating our wort, by trying to provide a nice environment for the yeast, because the yeast is doing the job that I can't do, creating alcohol. So, but actually you can see there's fermentation going on right here. This is the expat IPA that we've been patiently waiting on.
Oh, so this is your airlock right here.
This is, yeah.
Okay.
I don't like the buckets on the floor simply because I'm a clumsy person, and if there's stuff on the floor, I'm going to trip on it.
This is a more elegant solution.
It is. Also, it allows us to say there's a beer, like for instance the Blonde, that we don't want to throw in a cask.
Right.
It gives us the option to naturally carbonate it in the tank.
How much pressure can these tanks withstand?
They're rated to 15 psi, or no, 30 psi.
Oh, so that's plenty.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
30 psi.
So this is actually, basically it's a pressure release valve. And so I can dial in the temperature based on volumes of CO2 right here.
I see.
So it's a spunding valve, so I can dial it in, and so it keeps in whatever I dial it into, everything else gets blown off into atmosphere, so I can allow the beer to naturally carbonate it by itself if I want to.
I use I'll ferment in half barrel Sankey keg, and I use a modified. Well, it's not really modified. A coupler with a automatic pressure release valve on it.
Okay.
As a spunning valve.
Yeah.
I ferment my wheat beers under pressure. It works really well.
It makes for a cask beer feel in a keg.
I was able to go grain to glass in 9 days that way.
Really?
The beer was super green, but I was thirsty.
I mean, you can't deny the thirst.
No, not at all. Speaking of which.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's awesome. I've never seen that before. That's really cool.
So, and they're really cool. And it's not just that it's effective and it keeps things off of the floor, so I don't have more scars to my body.
Right.
It looks cool. It's a presentation. We bring people back on tours. They like to see that sort of thing.
Now, do you guys do y'all use bright tanks?
We do.
Okay.
Actually, we only have one right now. This is our bright tank right here behind us. And that's actually our lenticular filter that we've just added a couple of weeks ago.
I'm sorry. A what filter?
Lenticular filter.
Could you explain that?
So there are a couple different types of filtration mediums. There's plate frame filters, which are literally plates and little filter pads that you'll put inside of there. There's DE filters or diatomaceous earth filters that use basically, it's more or less seabed that's been pulled up, bleached, ground to a fine pulp, and you'll mix it into layers and filter through that. Ours is more of a disc with multiple layers on top of it, made with a combination of cellulose, diatomaceous earth,
and resinous
fibers.
This is what you broke.
Yes, that's what I broke.
Really expensive looking.
It's really expensive.
Piece of stainless steel.
I'm not going to lie. It was really expensive to start with, and then me fixing it was also extremely expensive. But this filter right here allows us to filter our beers to a nice clean quality. Like I said earlier, clean beer and bright beer is extremely important when it comes to British beer styles. So by passing it through this filter, it allows us to do that. We used to use gelatin. We did get a lot of backlash from vegetarians and vegans. That
You mean the people eating tasty animals?
No, vegetarians and vegans, the people that for some reason won't eat tasty animals.
That's weird.
I know, but they
because it's made out of almost all clarifying agents are made out of animal products. Yeah.
You know, fish swim bladders or horse hooves or cow hooves.
Except for polychlar,
which isn't FDA safe, according to the FDA.
Well, it's plastic.
Yeah. So we pass it through our filter now. So in the upcoming weeks, we will have. Right now, there are still some few beers of ours that are not vegetarian friendly or vegan friendly. And by the way, none of our casks are vegetarian and vegan friendly. We do still use findings in those. It is important. But all of our tap beers will eventually be that way. So
well, that's good.
You can feel good on your conscience.
Vegans have to drink too.
Well, exactly. And you can feel good on your conscience knowing that your hamburger is a little safer now because you don't have the extra horse hooves and things like that in there that other breweries are using.
My hamburger is safer with no horse hooves?
Yeah.
I don't remember ever having horse hooves in my hamburgers.
That you know of.
Well, that's true. That's true. They don't serve food, by the way, so you don't have to worry about eating horse hooves in their burgers, which a vegetarian or vegan probably wouldn't eat in the first place.
Yeah, that's true. I figure it could be a little gristly, a little
maybe,
chewy.
I don't know.
know.
You all don't serve. You got mac and cheese chuck outside.
I know. So. It's really good.
Yeah.
So after we pass it through our filter, we'll send it over here to our bright beer tank, where the final product goes, and that's where we're going to carbonate it. We use a sophisticated device that requires us to fill it and then shake it, called a Zamenagel.
You carbonate it in the.
We carbonate in the bright tank.
Okay, that makes much more sense because you've got a stone, a sintered stainless steel stone.
Absolutely.
Right. It's got tiny, tiny little holes in it, like down to 2 microns or something.
I think ours are down to 1.5.
1.5 microns? So you can carbonate something in a matter of hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll carbonate it all in here, and then for right now, we're breaking it all down into kegs. Kegs is our main medium to get it out to bars and restaurants and customers. We do, from the kegs, break it down into growlers. We are going to be adding a canning line, hopefully by the end of the year.
Nice.
So it's a huge step. It's been amazing to me that we've been open for not even 5 months, and I've had people come in on tours and, oh, are you bottling, or are you canning? And so they expect to jump very quickly.
So you're going to go with your own canning line, not a mobile canner?
Absolutely. I'm a control freak, so I like to take control of my own stuff.
But that's great. I think all beers should be in cans.
I don't know. I like bottles better.
I'm curious as to why. But we should probably talk about it
absolutely
later.
Yeah, we'll talk about it over a beer.
You were mentioning a fancy device that started with Z.
Yes, a Zamenagel.
The Zamenagel.
Yes. Actually, I don't have it nearby. But basically, it's a big stainless steel device. We'll connect it up to a sample port. We'll fill it with beer, and then we'll shake it like you're making a martini.
So it's a carbonation tester.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
And we'll test the carbonation, make sure that we've got the right volumes of carbonation, make sure we're providing a consistent carbonation for every batch of beer that we're doing. Once we've got that testing done, we've got the right volumes of CO2, then we can break it down into kegs.
Okay.
Which we have just a simple manifold that we made, does 3 kegs at a time.
Nice.
Yeah, so we can typically get a batch of beer kegged out in about 3-4 hours.
Nice. We should drink some beer now.
Absolutely.
Since we've been
It's
talking
really
about
warm back here.
It is. I'm thirsty.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, guys.